Hi everybody, this is Chen from Potomac Chess Club, and this is the online series that we will be doing. So this first game is part of a series of attacking games that I want to show. So this first game is by Bobby Fischer against Byrne, and it's called the Game of the Century. This is a famous game I want to show. So white plays knight f3, black develops, and so we just have both sides start developing pieces. Black has a fianchetto structure with this bishop, and he castles. And here, so you can see that white has developed 3 minor pieces, and he controls the center. And black, even though he doesn't have any pawns that are advanced, he has a solid king side with his 3 pawns, and he's already castled. So he wants to open the center and play d5. So idea is that if white takes, black can take, and if white tries to control the center, then black can take, and play c5. So here you can see that though white has a good center majority, black has a lot of pressure on the center, and he's already castled, and he has easy development, but white still has to develop his pieces. So here after d5, white plays queen b3. So what he wants to do is that after Fischer takes on c4 and he wants to take back with the queen, now his idea is to play pawn to e4, develop his bishop, and then get castled, and then he'll have a good game with the center. So, and now he's also attacking the c7 pawn. So Fischer just defends. Also notice that he doesn't want to play knight c6 because that runs into problems with like d5, where he can now get a tempo, and now he loses a pawn. So he plays c6, and here white plays e4, and he's now controlling the center. So now we have a dynamic position where white has center control and lots of pieces occupying this area, but black, he's castled, and he also has some piece development. So what black wants to do is he wants to take advantage of the fact that white hasn't castled yet, and he wants to open the center. So now we need a plan to kind of develop these queenside pieces for black. So you can pause your video and try to figure out how to develop this bishop and this knight. Okay, so what black wants to do is he wants to attack this queen, because white has moved his queen early in the opening, which he's not supposed to do. So black plays knight to d7 with the idea to play knight b6, attacking the queen. And when the queen moves, he wants to play his bishop to g4, where he can attack this knight and put indirect pressure on the d4 pawn. And then here white plays rook d1. He's still not developing his bishop and castling, which means that now black can now take advantage of this and develop all his minor pieces. So white plays bishop g5, and here if black doesn't do anything, white will just play bishop e2, castle, and enjoy a nice game with the 2 pawns in the center and active pieces. So here we need a tactic, or we need a tempo to try and weaken these center pawns. So notice that even though these pawns look powerful and strong, this pawn is only defended by this knight, and this pawn is only guarded by this queen and rook and knight, but this knight is pinned because we have pressure there. So try and find a move that Fischer played to disrupt white's development and take the initiative. So here Fischer played knight to a4. So he's sacrificing this knight so that he can weaken the e4 pawn. So we said that this e4 pawn is only guarded by the knight. So after knight a4, attacking the queen and the knight, he loses a knight, but he gains this e4 pawn, and now he can weaken white's center and get the initiative. So let's say white plays queen takes e7, a free pawn. Now black can play queen a5 check, developing his queen, and once white plays b4, black can play queen f5. And then when white moves his bishop back because black was attacking it, now we can play rook e8, queen takes b7. Now you can see that even though black is down a piece, look at all his active pieces. This rook aiming at the king, this knight, good outpost aiming at key squares. This bishop is pinning this knight, and this bishop also has future. And let's say here in this position, after knight takes e4, if white plays queen to b4, now black can take on g5, and because this knight is pinned, after he takes on g5, now black can take on d1. After king takes d1, now black has a rook for 2 minor pieces, and he has a rook and pawn for 2 knights, which is normally not good, but in this position, because white's king is on d1 and black has full development, this position is very good for black. He can continue with like b5 and then play like a5 or take the d4 pawn. This is winning for black. So because of this, white doesn't take on a4. He plays queen to a3. And now black takes on c3. So now he's weakening the e4 pawn again, and he takes on e4. But now white can play bishop takes e7, and it looks like there's a double attack. But after queen to b6, this taking the rook actually isn't good, because once again black has too much development. So now after he takes with the bishop, he's attacking the queen, and once the queen moves, you can actually trade queens and then play rook to e8. And now you have this powerful rook aiming at the king, this bishop pinning the knight, and this knight has multiple discoveries, and this bishop is also ready to go. So because of this, white doesn't take the rook. He tries to play bishop c4. He's trying to get castled. So now we also need another move that can stop white from castling and continue the attack. So what we need to do is we need to try to open this e-file, because this e-file is where the rooks need to attack on. We have all our other pieces active, and if we just get the rooks to the e-file, and we can if we get rid of this knight, and let's say we have a rook on e8, now we have pressure on the e-file. So try to think of what black did. Right, so what black did was knight takes c3, because what he wants is, let's say queen takes c3. Now black can get his rook to e8, and white doesn't have time to castle, because after rook takes e7, black has the bishop pair, and he's also up a pawn with control of the e-file. And after queen c3, rook to e8, even if he tries to protect it, his bishop, let's say queen to a3, trying to protect the bishop, this king is still pinned because he hasn't castled yet. So black can just play bishop takes, ruin white's pawn structure, and then play bishop f6, attacking this bishop. And because all of white's pieces are badly coordinated, he has no way of protecting this bishop. So let's say he castles again, we just take, and now this is just winning for black, because white has ruined pawn structure, and black is up a pawn, and he has the e-file. So knight c3 is really a crucial moment, and so now black plays bishop c5, or white plays bishop c5, trying to attack the queen, and what black wants is he wants black to move his queen, and then so now he can take the knight, and this would be good for white. But instead, because this e-file has opened up, Fischer plays rook to e8 check. And here, this is the most important moment of the game. If black plays queen, like if black just moves his queen, then white just takes on c3, and he has a good position. He's up a piece, and he can also try and get his king safe, and then get his rooks out. So here, you can see that black has a strong attack with all his pieces coordinated well, but what black really wants is he wants something to occupy this diagonal, either a bishop or a queen, because let's say if this bishop isn't here, like let's say white moves his bishop to b3, now white can play queen to b5 check, and the second black occupies this diagonal, white is forced to play king g1, knight e2, and now he has discovered attacks. So in this position, try and find a way for black to deflect this bishop off of this diagonal so that black can win. Right, so what black played here was he played bishop to e6, trying to deflect this bishop off of this important diagonal. So if white takes the bishop, now we have check, king moves, now try and find the finishing touch. So now this is just a smothered mate. We check, white moves king f1, now we have knight g3 check, a double check, forcing white to move his king, and now we have queen f1, a smothered mate. After white takes, knight e2 is checkmate. So instead of taking black's bishop, white took black's queen. And so this looks pretty bad for black because he's lost a queen, but he can occupy this diagonal now. And when white moves his king, we do the same thing, we check, and now we check again, winning a pawn. And notice that white's king can only move back and forth, so we can just check again, and now we're attacking the rook. And when white moves king g1, now we take a bishop. So now notice that we have two bishops for the queen, but this rook pretty much doesn't even count as a piece because it can't move anywhere. And we're also attacking the queen and the rook, which means we'll be getting another rook for the queen. So after queen b4, black plays rook a4, attacking the queen and also protecting his bishop. And once white plays queen takes b6, black takes the rook. And now you can see that black has two bishops and a rook for this queen, but this rook also doesn't do anything, so black is technically up two rooks. So white plays h3, and his idea is to play king h2 and get his rook out. So black just takes on a2, it's a free pawn, king h2, now we take another pawn, and white plays rook e1. So now is another important moment. Should black trade rooks or try and preserve the rooks? So pause your video. So here, black really wants to trade rooks, because if, let's say he plays rook a8, then if white can somehow get his rooks active and coordinate his queen and rook, it might cause black some trouble. So he just trades off the rooks, because now the only thing that white can do is play with his queen and knight, which isn't as good as black's two bishops, rook and knight. So here black plays bishop d5, knight f3. Here what black needs to do is he needs to solidify his position, so pretty much defend all his pieces and create no weaknesses. So try and find a way for black to like protect all his weakness or weak pieces. So what black does is he plays knight to e4 with idea that he protects this knight with his bishop, and this pawn protects this bishop, and when white tries to attack this b7 pawn, he just pushes it. And now notice that everything in black's position is defended. So this rook is defended by the bishop, this knight by the bishop, this pawn defends the bishop, and this pawn defends this pawn, and all these three pawns are defended by the king. So white pretty much has nothing to do here because black has no weaknesses. So he tries to play h4. He's trying to play h5 and creates some like weaknesses or openings, but we just play h5 to stop that, and now we can just slowly beat white. So knight to e5, king g7, getting out of the pin, and now black can develop his bishop. So after king g1, bishop c5 check, king f1, and here try and figure out the mating idea. This is forced mate in 5. So for those of you who got it, good job. It's pretty hard. So what black needs to do is he needs to force the king to this side where he doesn't have any pawns to protect him. So black plays knight to g3 check, and because this bishop cuts off the white king from escaping, and this rook guards the second rank, white's king can only move this way. So using these two bishops, black forces the white king closer to the queen side. After king c1, knight e2 check, king b1, knight c3 check. Now he forces the king back, and now you can see that this knight controls both b1 and d1. This rook controls all the second rank squares, so rook c2 is checkmate. So this is called the game of the century because it was pretty much the best game of the 1900s. So to recap, what happened was black quickly castles and develops his pieces, while white keeps his king in the center and tries to get center control. But after pushing these pawns, black takes advantage of the weaknesses and weakens the white center by playing this important move, knight a4. And after taking the e4 pawn and opening the e file, now he can once again play knight takes c3, so he has an open file for his rook. And now he plays bishop e6, which is called the move of the century. And now he occupies this important diagonal. And now he does what's called a windmill, which is where you just keep checking your opponent and just taking different pieces. So you take a pawn, and then you take the bishop, and then you take the rook, and now you just trade off rooks, keep a solid position, and then checkmate, and then create a mating net. So one of the important things about this game is the coordination of black's pieces. So even though he sacrificed a knight and his queen, his coordination between his rook, 2 bishops, and knight were better than black's queen or white's queen. So that's it for today. I hope you enjoy this game. So bye. See you next time.